Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to be discussing about Application Programming Interface, or what we commonly call API. Now, if you're slightly into programming, then you might have heard these terms somewhere, right? API request or API response or API in general. But what actually do those terms mean? Don't worry, it's very simple. Now, API is the concept that we usually use to communicate with different application systems, right? So it is nothing but a set of protocols or rules that we use that allows different application softwares to communicate with each other. Now, I'm going to take an example of a web service. Now, this is a website, and it's probably divided into two halves, right? Front end and the back end. Now, what actually is the front end? The front end is the user interface or the user experience that the user gets to see, right? Let's say there might be buttons, right? A header, navigation, and a sidebar maybe, right? A page, some kind of post. This is the front end part of the website. And what actually is the back end? Back end is nothing but a server that handles all these interactions, right? The server stores the data that is seen in the front end, right? What actually is should be displayed here is stored in this part, right, to the back end. Now, let's say a user tries to log in to his account. He first opens the front end and sees a login button, right? Then he presses the login button. Now, how will the back end know that the login has been clicked? Okay, that work is done by an API. Yep, API acts as a messenger that tells you the backend that the user has selected this button or the user has pressed this button and wants to do certain actions. Now, what actually API does is takes this request to the backend and the backend verifies the request if it's valid or not, and then sends the respective response to the front end. And this is also done via API. So you might have guessed it, yes, API acts as a middleman between the communication that allows the communication for front end to the back end or any two kind of application programming. I'm going to give you an example of a restaurant. We all know what a restaurant is. Now, the spelling might not be correct, but who cares? Okay, so let's say there's a restaurant and there is a chef, as there should be, and the chef, we call him the server. Now, and the chef has provided a Sunday menu, right? This is the menu for today, and there's a client that walks in through the door. Client, we call him customer for now, or the customer client, same thing. So the client first walks in through the door and sees a menu, right? And these are the available requests that he can make for today's uh, fine dining or something. So client sees the menu as requests and he wants to send the request. Okay, I want this food to the chef. Now chef has already prepared these menus, which are the request, and the chef expects to get these requests from the client. So yes, client says, okay, I want this item, and he wants to send a request to the chef to make that item. Now, how does the client do that? Client calls a waiter. Yes, client calls a waiter, and this waiter is called API. So what is the job of this waiter? Is to take request from the client that is in the menu and send it to the backend or the chef or the server, right? So the server can cook and provide the request as response to the client. Now this is also done by a waiter or an API. Okay, this is actually how it works. Now, there are different kinds of API. For example, I'm talking about web service, and the most used API in web service is known as REST API. What actually is REST API? It stands for Representational State Transfer API. And what actually is this? It is a type of API that is stateless. Now, what does stateless mean? Stateless means nothing but, let's say a client sends a request to the server, then the server demands that the client should provide all the information or the resources at once, and then only the server can provide some response. And between this process, the server does not store any kind of state or the condition of the request that the client is sending. That's why it's called stateless. What comes in, the backend handles it or verifies it, and same thing goes out as response, right? There is no state that stores it temporarily, so it's called stateless API. And this usually works via resource and URI. Now, what does these two terms mean? These two terms are the key components of REST APIs, right? Now, everything that the user sends is called resource, and everything that the server provides is handled in URI. Now, what is URI? URI is nothing but Uniform Resource Identifier. Okay, so what does this mean? Now, you might have seen www.youtube.com/create_post or /history. Now, these kind of terms are called URLs or URIs, same thing basically. So the resources are sent via some URIs. I'll give you an example of that in a second, but we need to understand how this works. Now, REST API uses some methods to send or receive the request, right? These methods are called HTTP methods. Now, what does HTTP stands for? You might have heard these terms a lot. Now, HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. These are the set of rules or protocols that allows the user to send some request to the backend or similarly vice versa, the backend to the user. There are different kinds of methods in HTTP. We're going to discuss a few. The most common one is GET. Now, it's self-explanatory what GET is. GET is the request that the user makes to the server to get some resources from the server as response. Now, in this method, the user cannot send any information, right? Because it's just trying to read the information from the backend. So this is the first method. Next is post. Now, what actually is post? Post is, okay, you guessed it. Post is the request that the user makes with some data or resource, right? Post is something that the user makes with some data or request and sends it to the backend, and the backend processes it or routes the data where it needs to go, and then sends back a response. That is happening in post. So these are two commonly used HTTP requests. We have some other few as well. Patch. Patch is nothing but updating the data. Let's say you have a password and in the server, and you want to change the password of the account, right? Then what you do is send the new password, and you might have seen a field called confirm new password as well. Yes, these two fields are sent to the server using patch because the old password needs to be replaced by the new password. So these are some of the common requests that HTTP can make. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of how this work in web development. Okay, for the example, we have opened up a code editor, and we will create a server in this editor and make API calls and see how they work. Okay, so first of all, we need to make a backend server. So I will just open this folder in a terminal, and then I will make a directory called backend. Anytime soon. As you can see, backend directory has been created. Now we need to travel inside this backend directory, which we will do using cd command, which stands for change directory. And if you type the name of the directory, now we are inside this backend. Okay, now we will set up a server. For now, I will set up a Node.js server inside this, which is done by npm init y. You can just do npm init, but y, if you use this, it will just name everything for you, and it's easier basically. So yeah, now you are inside this folder, and there is a package.json, as you can see. We will run this in a while. For now, I will teach you how to set up a server actually. For that, we need to install npm inside this folder. Okay, npm has been installed, and then I will use this express server. So I will install it using npm package manager, express. So as you can see, dependencies express has been added. So express will be my server. Now, how do we create an application inside the server? For that, we need to create a file inside this backend called app.js, or you can name it anything you want. This is basically the application on what the server stands for, right? So we will import the server inside this application, and we will initialize this application via express. So now our application has been set up. Now, when now how does this application actually show itself? actually this application should run on some kind of port, right? So we will run that. We will run that by this app.listen command, and we will give the number of the port that you can use. You can use 3000, 5000, anything you want. Basically the port that your computer accepts, and then we will check if this is working or not. Sorry, we will just create an error function, and we'll just console log it to see if it's working. Okay, now to see if it's working, we will first set up a default route. We will discuss this in a second. And I taught you uh, previously that GET is an HTTP request that actually reads what the server is sending, right? So we need to send something. Now request and response is sent, and let's suppose you have response.send. Let's suppose when you open slash, it will send you hi. Yes, the server is working. Now, what this piece of code does is whenever I run the server and server is live, and if I am on the slash page, which is the default page that you are, then it will send you, yes, the server is working. Okay, so now the server has been set up, and to test if this is working or not, we're gonna see it in Postman. Postman is a tool that you can see if your API calls are working or not, or you can make API calls via this Postman tool to see if they actually work or not. Right? For now, we're using Postman, and you just need to you will see this interface first when you install it, and you just need to click on new request that you are going to make, and then you can see a default request page. Now, as you can see on the left, there are different kinds of requests that we talked about. These are all HTTP requests. For now, we're just going to get, and here it's saying enter URL or paste text, right? What is the URL? URL is nothing but the URL of the server that it is running on, right? For now, it's running on the port 8000. So what you are going to do is, since this is an HTTP request, we're going to do HTTP colon slash slash local host that is running on your machine, and which port you are given you have given it slash. Now this should now display hi, yes, the server is working. This should now display hi, yes, the server is working. Now does it do that? No, unfortunately not, because we are actually not running this actually, right? We have not made it live yet. Now how do we do that? We just need to run app.js, which we will do in package.json. We need to maintain it. Now in the scripts, we don't need this actually, this is by default. So no, we are going to set up a start and then node and your application name. This is how you actually run this app.js. Now you just need to paste here whatever your name of the application is. Mine is app.js, so I'll just paste app.js. Now when we click npm, we need to save this first. When you click npm start in the terminal, okay, it's saying cannot use import statement outside module. Okay, since this we are using import statement, this is supported by via type of module. Now since we have given the type of JavaScript as module, now it should run perfectly. Let me try again. Start. Yes, app is listening at port 8000. Now this application is live now. Okay, now we can go here and send the request again. See, hi, yes, the server is working. Now what actually is this? This is the response that we are getting. Now how are we getting the response? We're getting the response when we send this request to slash. As you can see, slash means default. There's nothing after this, so this is the default URL. And request, we're not sending any request for now. We're just sending get request, and as a response, the server is sending the response, hi, yes, the server is working. So this response.send is the response that you need. Now, this is how the get operation works, right? Let's say we create another request for post. Now, for post, you just need to change this get to post. Everything is same, right? And even here, you just need to put the same resource locator, which is localhost 8000. Now, for post, we just need to make another function or route. So what happens is when the client for now is the postman, client sends some request, this button sends some request, the API is called to this part, right? Now I want to send a post request. So I just need to set up a post server, right? So application dot post. Let's say I want to add a name, right? And then request response. And what I need to do is um, I will take name from the body and then I will send that same name as response. Now, what does this piece of program do? This piece app.post, so application.post slash add name. So what is this? This is the API route that we have set up. So whenever the user sends any kind of value with property name in this route, then what does it do? It sends back the same name to the user. Or we can slightly modify it. Name has been set, and then we can use name to show the user that yes, the name has been set. Okay, so if you don't know basic JavaScript, I would prefer you to first learn JavaScript a bit, and then you can actually continue with this. So what happens now is we just need to send a post request to the server where we have to type here add name because this is the location. And whenever we send something in this location, we will get back a response saying, yes, the name has been set to this name. Okay. Now let's see if this works. We initially we will land on this page, but we can go to this page and then we just need to type a JSON file with name property, and you can give anything. You can give James, right? Now you just need to send this. Do we get something? No, error. Why? Because everything that the server accepts as request should be in JSON format, right? Should be in JSON format. Now we are sending this in JSON format, but this is not receiving it in JSON format, right? So what do we need to do is use a middleware. For that, we just need to use a middleware. We use app.use for some any kind of middleware that we need, and we just need to do it express.json. Now, everything that the user sends is transferred or received as in JSON format. This is the middleware to change anything the user sends as request in JSON format. Now, the request should work probably. It's still giving me error because add name and requested body response was sent. Oh yes, I have not restarted the server yet because once the server is started, it will just display whatever it's here. But previously we had this app.get and I have added few things here, but I have not restarted the server. So I just need to restart the server again to refresh the memory of the server basically. Okay, since we have restarted the server, now this should work. Yep, name has been set to James. So this is how it works, right? So for even patch, we just need to do app.patch, everything is same. Now let's say we have to rename the name of the user, and we just need to request and response that we will send. And let's say we get a new name from the user, new name from request.body. Then we just need to send new name has been set up, and we can send this as response as new name. Simple as that. We just need a post one. Yes. We just need to update the data using patch. As you can see, the method here is patch. Now we just need to add the same thing, but rename because the location is rename, right? And we just need to send a JSON data. We named it new name, right? Let's say I'm just bond next bond. Okay, send. Okay, I'm still getting some error because cannot patch. Oh yeah, I forgot to restart the server again. We'll just close this initially first. and I will just npm start. Now I can send this again. Yes, new name has been set up, bond, right? This is how API request and responses work, right? So as these are the API endpoints, what we call endpoints, and these are the locations where the API controls the data. So whenever we make requests to these endpoints, we will get these responses. Now you might be wondering why do I need to restart the server again and again? That is the property of node basically, because it takes whatever it's here, it starts it and it does not change it at all. Even though we change a million things here, the server will be live on the previous state. So for to prevent that, you can use some tools like nodemon. If you set up nodemon, then it will restart the server once every time you add some new things and save again. And you might be wondering, how was I closing this and again restarting this? We just need to do Control C, and then it will just close this initial server and restart again. And we just need to type npm start. I hope this video was not too confusing, and basically you understood what APIs are and how it's made in web development and how it's actually handled. We will discuss more about APIs in the further series of backend, which I will put out in a few days. So yeah, thank you for staying and discussing this with me.